Hello, everybody. Welcome back to East Coast Haunts. I'm Sam,
And I'm MK.
and we switched up the order in which we say our names for this episode. I don't know if you noticed, but it's kind of like it's a little bit of a special episode today,
Oh, yeah.
because we're kicking off a special season in our lives.
Yeah, we sure are. We have a pretty big milestone coming up. Sam, do you want to tell the people?
Yes, I would love to tell the people we are going to hit our 1 year anniversary of East Coast Haunts pretty darn soon, which is like insane to think about.
I
Do
know,
you
I
feel
can't
like it's
believe
been longer than a year? Do you feel like
I
it's been
do.
longer than a year?
Yeah, I think that it's flown by because I've had so much fun doing it, but it does feel like it's been a part of my life for longer than a year, right?
I completely agree with you. It has flown by because I feel like not like the time that we lived together, looking back, like it feels like it was like a month long, right? But also
Mm-hmm.
I feel like since we've been interested in spooky stuff for a while and we talk so much about spooky stuff and we watch all this spooky stuff, like it does seem like we've been doing it for a long time. So I can't believe it's been almost exactly a year, but here we are.
I know. So our official 1 year anniversary since the release of our first episode is August 14th. So we decided that in order to celebrate this and also as kind of like hey, reminder that we're coming up on spooky season here, we've decided to do a multi-part episode series on one of the most famous haunted cases of all time, and that is the Amityville Horror. So today, Sam is going to talk about a little bit what happened before the notorious haunting case. So there was a whole true crime case associated with this that a lot of people point to as the reason that this house became so haunted, right?
Should I take it away?
Yeah, I absolutely. Go ahead.
All right. So, right, just like Mary Kay just said, the Amityville horror case, I think that everyone has pretty much heard of it. I was just saying to Mary Kay before we started recording, I didn't really know. I mean, I knew that it was associated with something bad, with something spooky. I didn't know that there was a true crime case behind it. So that was very interesting to learn about. Um, and I know that it's a book, it's a movie, but there's a lot of true stuff behind it. I mean, whether you believe in the supernatural or not, like there are cold hard facts and real people that were involved in this, which is super interesting.
Yeah. I do want to say that a lot of, at least my information for this case, like the haunting part of it, so I'll be covering the haunting of the Lutz family in the next couple of parts, came from the book The Amityville Horror by Jay Anson. And it's a really cool book because it's all the first-hand account from George and Kathleen Lutz, who are the couple that experienced the haunting once they moved into this house. And it's basically a whole recounting of the entire time that they lived there over a series of recorded tapes that they then sent exclusively to this author. So this is like the point source for all the stories and the hauntings and the first-hand accounts and everyone who was involved in this horror, right? So definitely, if you're interested, if you want a little bit more detail, go check out the Amityville Horror by Jay Anson, because it's this case gets crazy.
And so the book that you're talking about is the original book that I guess kickstarted everything, right? That brought the Amityville Horror to the mainstream.
Yes, absolutely. And it's just a whirlwind. I'm almost finished with it. But it just covers it from when they move in to when they move out. And so it's really not a long period of time at all, but it's so jam-packed with like crazy paranormal stories. Our favorite paranormal couple is involved in this case too, and Lorraine Warren make a little bit of an appearance here. Exactly. So it's just, this case is, I think, the perfect case to kind of wrap up our first year of recording. And just because it wraps up everything we love all into one case.
That's a perfect way to put it. So today, though, before we talk about all the hauntings and the spooky side of it, we have to talk about the historical side, where it all started.
Yes.
So Amityville is a town in New York. It's a village known for its picturesque waterfront location. It's located along the Great South Bay, so there are plenty of marinas, beaches, water areas that attract residents and visitors. So it's definitely a popular place for tourists, but it's also a very popular place to live. And I imagine it's probably a fairly expensive place to live since it's by the water and it's in New York. So
yes, it is.
There are, yeah, I was gonna say and I'm sure they have a lot of tourists that come for the spooky side, but we'll get to that later. So Amityville has historic homes. It's got suburb developments. Like I said, it has some waterfront properties, so it's like a really nice area. It's got a small town feel, close-knit community feel, and it's especially popular for water sports and boating. So it kind of sounds very picturesque and like ideal, which makes it, I think, what happened there even more interesting and makes it really like even more horrific, because it's like the type of place where people are saying this type of stuff doesn't happen.
So it's funny that you say that, because this case, which I don't want to give too much away, but we did cover a very similar true crime case in Westfield, the John List murders. Yeah. And it, so far, Amityville and Westfield are giving like the same kind of vibe, like an affluent neighborhood. This is where people's dream homes are. Like, if you move to Amityville or Westfield, you know you've made it. It's a great place to raise the kids, like great, I'm sure, great views of the water, great vacation spot. So you're right. It does make everything that went down here that much freakier.
Yes, exactly. And I'm glad he brought that up, because I do feel like there are so many parallels between the John List case and the DeFeo murders. So it's interesting. Yeah, so just keep that in the back of your mind. If you guys haven't listened to that listen to that episode yet, then definitely go listen. But let's get into it. Yes.
Actually, wait, before we get into it, that I did have one announcement that I totally forgot to make in the beginning of the episode, but very exciting news. We now have a YouTube channel with all of our episodes. We're in the process of uploading all of them, but we are now on YouTube, so make sure to like and subscribe. And
smash
we've
that
got
subscribe button.
Exactly. We're gonna look into maybe doing a little giveaway with our first couple of subscribers. And we announced this on our Patreon a couple of days ago, right when the channel first launched. So by the time this episode comes out, hopefully all of our latest episodes will be up, but we're working on that right now. So definitely go on there, because we'll have some spooky content on there in addition to our episodes.
We'll probably be getting that gold play button any day now.
Yep. Definitely.
You know what I'm talking about? The one that you get at like 1 million subscribers or whatever. Anyway. All right. So back to Amityville. So, you know, like I said, everything about Amityville seems really great. Like you said, Mara, like if you live there, you've made it, right? But nowadays, when we hear the word Amityville, I think we all think of the Amityville Horror. Even if you don't know exactly what it is or the details, you've definitely heard that phrase before. So, the Amityville Horror, the whole story begins with the DeFeo family, who were very sadly and brutally murdered back in 1974. And there were 7 members of the family. 6 members of the family were killed, and the murders happened on November 13th, 1974, and it happened inside the DeFeo family home at 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, New York.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yep. So here, let's get into it. The DeFeo family consisted of the patriarch, which is Ronald DeFeo Sr., who was apparently called Big Ron. The matriarch, who was Louise DeFeo, and then their 5 children: Ronald Jr., also known as Butch, Dawn, Allison, Mark, and John Matthew. So there were 3 boys, 2 girls, and then, of course, the 2 parents. So when the victims died, everyone was young. I mean, the oldest was, of course, the father, Ronald DeFeo Sr. He was 44. Louise, the mother, was 42. Dawn, the eldest daughter, was 18. Allison, the middle daughter, was 13. Mark, the eldest son, well, not the eldest son, but the eldest son to die in this tragedy, was 12 years old.
Oh,
and then
God.
John Matthew was 9. So this was a young family, and it's not like this was a young family, like, you know, in their prime. The parents were like early 40s. The kids were all still kids, so it's really sad.
It just breaks your heart when you hear stuff like this. Oh, it makes you sick to your stomach, doesn't it?
It does. It's very similar to the John List case, where it's like all the kids were like still very young. The wife was young.
Yeah.
It's just like it's depressing. It's a bummer, you know? Like, there's nothing fun. Like, I know people say like, oh, like the spooky things are fun, but this, like, the true crime stuff is like very, very depressing and dark.
No, it's this kind of energy, though, like this depressing, like chilling energy is definitely what set up, personally, I think, any hauntings that later happened in this house, because we always said, like, hauntings are more likely to happen at the sites of a tragedy, and this is nothing short of, like, the most tragic thing that could happen to a family.
Exactly. And honestly, like you just said, I mean, like, I can only imagine, like, the weird, depressing, dark energy that was left over in this house after what happened, because it's really, really, really bad. So I went over the victims with you a second ago. Notice how, I mean, I know there are a lot of people in this family, a lot of names, but I did not mention Ronald Jr., aka Butch, as one of the victims of the murders. So obviously he lives, right? So just keep that in mind as we continue. You might know where this is going. So all 6 victims were found. Yeah. All 6 victims were found by the police in their beds, and they were lying on their stomachs. It's estimated that the whole slaughtering, for lack of a better word, took about 15 minutes from start to finish. So it was a pretty quick.
Oh my God. Yeah,
it was quick. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how you define quick, but whoever did this killed 6 people in 15 minutes. So the person that reported the murders was actually Ronald Jr., or Butch DeFeo. He told the police he arrived home from work on the evening of November 13th, and he discovered that someone had broken into the house and had killed his entire family, which is really sad. Like, can you imagine that?
No.
Yeah, neither could the police. But this was his story. He said, I came home from work, and my whole family was dead. They were all dead, laying there. So, they asked him, okay, like, well, who do you think maybe could have done this murder? Who do you think could be capable of doing something like this? And he said that he thought it could have been carried out by a man named Louis Fellini, who was a mafia hitman.
Well, so can I ask the question? Is there a reason that he thought that this Louis guy was capable of doing these murders, or was the family involved with the mafia in any way? Like, why was this guy the first person to come to mind?
Um, I did not see anywhere that the DeFeos were even remotely involved in any mafia activity. They
Doesn't
seem like a
surprise.
very normal family. Um,
Hmm.
nothing, nothing nefarious going on within the family that would lead to anyone to believe that they were involved in something shady or any mafia business. It's also interesting that he had that name right in his head, ready to give when the police asked.
I mean, maybe I'm lucky because I can't think of like anyone who I believe is capable of doing this, but I don't think I would tend to run in the same circle as someone who I did think was capable of this. You know what I'm saying? Like, why
I
is that a
completely
name
agree.
that popped up?
I completely agree. I think that it would be abnormal to know someone and associate with someone that you think is capable of murdering your whole family, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to say. Okay, good.
So, the investigation actually revealed that the murders had occurred earlier in the day, more towards the morning, um, which would be before DeFeo had left for work. So, of course, DeFeo was saying that, oh, look, I was at work all day. I got back in the evening. So, of course, it couldn't have been me. Like, that's his alibi, right? But
Okay.
now the police are saying, well, actually, they died earlier in the morning before you were at work. So, can you explain that? And he said, oh, actually, yes, I can explain that. And he says, actually, Fellini, who's the mafia man, um, showed up, and he had an accomplice with him, and they put a gun to my head on the morning of November 13th, and they forced me to watch them kill my family. And
What?
so I think yeah. What are
What?
your thoughts?
No. Hold on. Let me let me compose my thoughts because
Gather yourself.
I am stunned. First, how do you go from "oh yeah, it might have been this guy that killed my family" to saying I watched him and another man brutally murder my entire family? How do you switch up your story that fast?
And it also begs the question, like, if he was if he was scared of Fellini, why would he have mentioned him? Like, you would think that he would not have mentioned Fellini at all if he was scared
Right.
of Fellini retaliating. I don't know. It doesn't really make any sense, right?
No, I would say that this story seems to be not very well thought out.
It's not. And so the police kept pressing and, like, asking for details of this new story that he came up with. And finally, DeFeo, he said, "Listen," and this is the quote. He basically cracked under the pressure and he said, "Once I started, I just couldn't stop. It went so fast," which was his confession.
Uh,
So he went from saying he came home from work and he had no idea what happened to then saying, "Oh, well, I was there, but the mafia man was holding a gun to my head and he made me watch the whole thing." Which, like, wouldn't you try to save your family at least? Are you kidding me?
that someone could be holding a gun to my head and say, "Watch me kill your whole family," and I think I would fight. Like at that point, why do I care if this is like going to come across as gruesome? But if I'm watching them kill my whole family, like, I'd rather be dead too. You know, or at least
I
I'd rather
completely
die
agree.
with them.
And I believe I'm confirming this right now. I'm pretty sure he was 23. Yeah, he was 23 when this happened. So it's not like he was a
23.
kid. I mean, you're a 23-year-old man. Like, you're not going to try and save your 9-year-old brother. Seriously?
No,
But
see, I'm 23 right now, and I can say wholeheartedly that I would try with all my might to save any member of my family. I don't
exactly.
care if
So
there's a
it's
gun
like,
to my head or not.
exactly. And I think that's what any, like, sane person would think. But of course, we can spiral, but at the end of the day, like, that story that he made up wasn't even real. So
Yeah.
obviously he wouldn't have tried to save his family because he's the one that killed them. And he just confessed to that, saying, "Once I started, I just couldn't stop. It went so fast." So that's
This
a
is not
confession
like
right there.
it's not like a handful of potato chips. What do you mean you couldn't stop?
Yeah, yeah, right? He's saying it so casually, like, "Oh, Yeah, like a handful of potato chips. Exactly. It's
Oh,
weird.
get these away from me. Bro.
You can't trust me around a bag of Utz. Like, okay. Um. So yeah. So he had confessed, and that was that. Like I said before, all the bodies were found, on their beds, on their stomachs, and so they were all found in like the exact same position, which is really creepy and weird. And it suggests that maybe they had all been arranged that way. In fact, I think they had definitely been arranged that way. But also, the police were able to determine.
So they were arranged that way, and I know that because there's like a very specific haunting that has to do with like the DeFeo members being put on their stomachs. I believe they had their hands above their heads as well. And that's the position that he left all 6 of them in, because I don't want to spoil anything for the next episode, but they had reason to believe that that was the position before, and that hadn't been released to the press, I believe, before the Lutzes moved in, and somehow all of them knew that that was the position that the bodies were left in.
Interesting. Okay.
It's hard to go into too much detail without giving away like a huge part of the case, but that's definitely an important point to remember for part 2.
Okay. I'll lock that away in my brain. The identical positioning is definitely creepy and weird. Another weird fact is that the rifle had not been fitted with a silencer, so the gunshots should have woken up all the other members of the family. Like, when Butch went to go kill the first member of the family, you would think the others would have woken up. And then when he killed the second member, you'd think that the remaining ones definitely would have woken up. So it's a little bit weird. And there were also no signs of struggle, which is also very weird. And there was no evidence that any sedatives had been used. So there's no sign of struggle, and there were no sedatives. So we don't really know how he was able to keep them quiet, or how he was able to get them to not fight back.
So I do just want to note really quickly that I did a little research into the whole drugging thing, because also in the book it's a huge point of contention that not only did the family members not hear it, but also the neighbors didn't hear it as well. And it was a high-powered rifle, so they should have been able to hear it. DeFeo, during the trial, claimed that he drugged his family during dinner, but a lot of like the forensic experts and like toxicologists said that enough time had passed between the time they ate dinner and the time that they died that at best they would have been like sluggish. They wouldn't have been fully under whatever drug's influence anymore. So it is really weird that none of them woke up. I do have to say that they say also in the house, like, sound was really weird, which is another telltale sign of a haunting. So, or it could just be an acoustic thing. I don't know.
So was the sound weird when the DeFeos were living there, or after they had been killed?
I'm not sure. I just know that during the time when the Lutzes were living there, sometimes they heard things that they should have heard or they shouldn't have been hearing, and they didn't hear like the phone ringing when it was in the room next door. And at this point, it's like a landline that was like a very loud landline. So it's just like there was a lot of weird interference in this house. So
yeah, it sounds like there was a lot of weird interference that maybe it didn't even start with the DeFeos. I mean, maybe, I don't know. Who knows? And then another weird thing, actually, since you're mentioning how the neighbors didn't hear any gunshots, all they heard apparently was the family dog barking. So they did hear something, but they didn't hear what you would think they would have heard, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that is really weird.
Yeah.
How do you hear a dog barking but not a high-powered rifle?
I don't know. I have no idea. So, some people actually, there's newer evidence, and when I say newer, it's from like around 2012. But there was a documentary filmmaker named Ryan Katzenbach, and he, I believe he made a couple of documentaries about the Amityville Horror, but he said that he believed that there was a second gun involved in the crime, like a second gunman. So there could have been someone else helping Butch, which kind of makes a lot of sense as to how they were able to keep everyone quiet, or how they were able to keep everyone from, I guess, escaping, and maybe how they were able to keep everyone quiet. What do you think of that?
I think that that's a very plausible explanation, especially because even without the emotional factor of these being your family members, 6 people in 15 minutes seems crazy fast, especially if there's the chance that one of them had woken up, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, yeah, like there were little kids, like some of the people were younger, but like the dad, the mom, like even like the older sister, like they could have all put up a fight. So it's an interesting theory that there was someone else there helping him.
It makes sense, I think.
Yeah. So the public reaction to the murder, obviously everyone was shocked. Just like, I was going to say just like in Westfield, but I think that with John List, people thought he was kind of weird.
Yeah.
And, like, of course people were surprised, but I think but then all those stories came out about how he was like kind of an asshole, right? To like his neighbors, and no one really loved him. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Didn't he like throw rocks at kids that were like passing by too? Am I remembering that?
Wasn't there a donkey or something?
Yes, yeah, he used to like throw rocks at the donkey and also throw rocks at the kids that were passing by.
Like, yeah, oh yeah, that's so weird. He was so freaking weird. Like, he was so weird. Like, obviously, yeah, for many other reasons besides throwing rocks at donkeys and children, but we won't get into that. So, yeah, people were shocked. Obviously, it got a ton of media attention, because this was like the brutal killing of 6 people in a family. And as if that wasn't even bad enough, of course, the person that killed them was the brother/son. So it just like adds to the whole shock value of it all. And also it was the killings were like seemingly senseless. And that was another thing. It was just like pointless. Like, what did he do it for? I think, and that was like what frustrated people and made people talk about it even more. Was like, what was the point of all that? So of course, then we move into the trial. You're not going to be surprised that Ronald DeFeo Jr., aka Butch, eventually tried to go the route of the insanity defense. He said that he had voices in his head that compelled him to commit the crimes. Of course, his team argued that he was mentally unstable at the time of the murders, and therefore he should not be held responsible for his actions. But I don't think that mental illness is an excuse to do something like that, right? Like, I think there are plenty of people who suffer from mental illnesses and don't do that. So I'm not really sure what they were going for there. But yeah, his defense lawyer was named William Weber, and he and DeFeo claimed that DeFeo killed his family in self-defense at some point. They also did like an insanity / self-defense because he heard their voices plotting against him. So I don't really know if that's like he was trying to do insanity and self-defense, because like I guess in his mind it was self-defense, but in real life it was because he was insane. Insanity? Because he didn't really know what was going on.
That's so strange. Right? That's so confusing. Weird.
It's confusing because it's like, okay, like in his mind, like they're saying that it was insanity, but in his mind it was self-defense because of his insanity.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. The whole trial, from what I read, seemed to kind of be a little bit of a hot mess.
Yeah.
Did you read William Weber's like other defense that they tried to go?
Was it something with LSD or heroin, or no?
No. Oh,
Okay,
I
what
guess
was
they
it?
had. So William Weber came out and he said that it was because of the house that Bush DeFeo killed his
Okay.
entire family. So this is like, again, like another thing to keep in mind before we go into part two is that even prior to these murders happening, supposedly this house had like really weird vibes. Weber said, quote, that he was aware that certain houses could be built or constructed in a certain manner so as to create some sort of electrical currents through some rooms based on the physical structure of the house. Again, the scientists said that they are investigating that to rule that out. And after they rule out all reasonable or scientific explanation, then it's going to be referred over to another group at Duke University who will delve into the psychic aspects of the case. So, end quote. So, what that basically means is that if there's not a scientific explanation for the voices, as in some sort of electrical current, then they were going to have it evaluated by a team at Duke University to see if there was some kind of paranormal activity going on within this house, and this is prior to the murders. So
Okay.
I just thought that was like an interesting thing to share, especially that quote that they were claiming paranormal activity in this house prior to the murder of 6 people.
Yeah, it is interesting. It makes you wonder about, like, I guess the energy of the house, but also it just
Right.
kind of seems like they're grasping at straws,
Exactly.
right? Yeah,
You
like
took
they
the
were kind
words
of
out of
like
my mouth.
they're throwing everything at the wall. They're like, okay, like let's see what people will believe. So,
Yeah.
but also, so the reason I was saying about heroin and LSD, so of course the psychiatrist that was working for the defense, he supported the insanity plea. He was like, yeah, he's definitely insane. Like you should this guy's guilty, but he's insane, so he can't be guilty because he's insane. That was a horrible explanation, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then the psychiatrist for the prosecution was named Dr. Harold Zolan. And he said that although DeFeo did use heroin and LSD at times, he had antisocial personality disorder. But so he did certain drugs, he had antisocial personality disorder, but all that being said, he was aware of his actions when he committed the crimes. So, you can say he was on drugs, you can say he was insane, but when he was actually committing the crimes, he fully knew what he was doing. Therefore, he's guilty and he wasn't insane or anything as he was committing them. And the trial's judge said at the end of the hearing that they were the most heinous murders committed in Suffolk County since its founding. And of course, DeFeo was found guilty on 6 counts of murder. But actually, it was on 6 counts of second-degree murder, which is interesting. I don't really know. I don't know much about, like, the first degree. I know first degree is, like, the most serious.
So, second degree, I believe, is. Let me double check this, but I believe it's a crime of passion. So,
Okay.
it's no premeditation went into it. Yes, exactly. So, second degree murder generally includes murders committed with malicious intent. So, they go into it intending to cause murder, which I guess is the difference between second degree and manslaughter.
Okay.
And then not premeditation. So first degree is intent to kill with premeditation. Second degree is intent to kill but with no premeditation.
So,
and then I guess manslaughter is
like did an
sudden
intent to kill. So I guess I'm confused. I think it's interesting that he got second degree murder because I think that drugging them beforehand isn't that like as clear cut as it gets for premeditation?
You would think so, right?
Yeah. So I don't know what went into that decision, but he got 6 counts of six sentences, and each sentence was for 25 years to life. So even if he got the minimum of 25 years for each sentence, he's never going to get out of jail. And he died. Actually, he died in 2021. I think it was in March 2021. Yeah, so he lived a pretty long time, unfortunately. But luckily he was, kept from the public for the rest of his life. And he, of course, had done appeals and requests to the parole board throughout his time in jail. But of course, they'd all been denied. No, he wasn't going to get out of jail. Like, that's
Good.
stupid. And it's definitely interesting because the motive, no one, like, there's not really a motive, like, that people can agree on for why he killed his family. Apparently, he did have a pretty bad relationship with his dad, but that wasn't, people don't think that was enough for him to murder not only his dad, but his entire family with his dad.
I don't think that it's like the whole thing of like nature versus nurture. So yes, it probably, his like young relationship with his dad when he was young, it probably like exacerbated some sort of, if it was anti-personality disorder, it's, you know what, it was probably exacerbated by like the physical abuse and by his dad. He was also bullied when he was a kid.
But like, and so many people are bullied.
And it does. Yeah, not all bullies turn into these crazy serial killers, right? So you have to think that there had to be some kind of pre-existing condition.
Exactly. And also apparently he at some point DeFeo asked the police, of course after his family was dead, he asked the police how he could collect his dad's life insurance policy. So that was definitely something that raised, people were like, okay, could that have been his motive? Like, was he trying to get money? I mean, a lot of people don't think that's the reason, but it's definitely something to note. So
that's strange.
And if anything, it just kind of like goes to show like how much he just didn't care because he was thinking about the life insurance policy.
You have to think, right? Okay. So if I would never, right? But if I were going to murder someone, okay, I just want to put it out there that this is a purely hypothetical. Okay. And let's not even say me, let's say someone. Let's say someone's going to murder someone because they know that they're a beneficiary on their life insurance policy, right?
Yeah.
They have to do the research. What would you not do the research beforehand that says, hey, if I'm a suspect in this person's murder, I don't get the payout?
Right. Right. But criminals are stupid.
You would know that, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's a good point. But I don't know. That's never, like, life insurance policies as a motive have never made sense to me.
But people are just stupid. Like, and honestly, like, none of the motives in this case really make any sense at all.
Yeah,
like,
true.
It's weird. So of
there's
course
never
throughout
a good motive. Sorry. There's never a good motive for killing someone. I just want, like, obviously Sam and I both know that, but we're just saying that some are like just incredibly, like, you could put yourself in their shoes and like still not understand.
Yeah, with this case, it's like none of like the classic, like, oh, he did it because he was a scorned lover, or he did it for money, or he did it because he was crazy. None of these really, like, none of them really fit with this case. But after he was arrested, and of course, like I said, he lived till 2021, so he had plenty of time here on Earth to continue to be annoying. So he actually gave a bunch of different accounts throughout his life of what actually happened. He's trying to be like, this is what actually happened. Like, I'm giving the expose. In 1986, he did an interview and he said that his sister, Dawn, who was the 18-year-old, I believe, she actually killed their father. And then their mother was like so upset that then she killed all of his siblings. And then Butch, killed his mother.
So the audacity of this man to murder all his family members and then like try to tarnish their reputation by saying that they committed the murders and he only killed his mother. What?
And it's like, okay, you already killed them. Are you really gonna like put salt in the wound and like speak badly when they're dead and they can't even be there to defend themselves and like blame the murders on them? Not that anyone believed him. Yeah, and honestly, like, of course, no one believed them, but it's interesting. And he also... Sorry, did you say something?
No, I was just... This case is, like, draining me a little bit.
It is. It's so frustrating. And then also in 1990, he tried to get his conviction vacated because he said that what happened was Dawn and an unknown assailant had killed their parents and the siblings. So Dawn and some other person that he didn't know had actually killed both parents and then had also killed the siblings. And then, of course, he killed Dawn, but only in an accident because he was fighting her for the gun and he accidentally killed her. So she killed everyone and that... It's like, first of all, what do you have against Dawn? Like, can you stop trying to...
why is she the one?
I think it's maybe because she, like, age-wise, like, everyone else was so young. The others were 12 and 13 and 9. So maybe he thought it was, like, the most realistic other option.
I guess so.
You'd think that if he was going to blame anyone, he would blame, like, the father, right? Because that's the person that he had, like, the bad relationship with, and that's also the person that, like, you know, is the strongest, most likely. So I don't... It's like, yeah, like, your 18-year-old sister, what?
This guy just grosses me out. Good riddance. I hope he rots.
Yeah, I know. It's just like... It's like he couldn't just sit there. He should have just sat there and, like, really, who was he trying to fool? Because, like, no one believed him. So it was just...
no one's going to believe you.
It's all a waste. And the whole thing is just, like, pointless and stupid and, like, sad. And obviously, it, like, you know, 6 people were, like, killed. Their lives were cut very, very short.
In the prime of their life.
Nonetheless. Yeah, exactly. And some of their, like, most of their lives hadn't even started yet. Like, none of the kids' lives hadn't really started yet.
No.
And also Amityville now, of course, has this stain on its history. Like, I don't know if it will ever fully... I'm sure it's a beautiful place to live, and I'm sure the people that live there love it. But, like, unfortunately, I just feel like that the story will never fully...
No.
It'll never be able to separate itself from the...
It'll never
that happen. Yeah, so he died in 2021, and that's pretty much the story of the DeFeo family murders. It's really sad. Like you said, it's similar to John List. It's frustrating. It's, like, stupid and pointless, which is why it's so frustrating, because it's like, why did you do this? But that's, like, the backdrop to what you're going to be talking about very soon. So that's kind of what you need to know going into the next episode.
You did a great job. I really didn't know a whole lot about I knew the basics. I knew that 6 people had been murdered, and I knew a little bit about what they claimed in the trial, but the book that I read focused mainly on, like, the Lutz's experience. So in case you have no background on the Amityville Horror, basically what we're going to go into in the next episode is that, like, a little bit over a year after this murder occurred, the Lutz family, so it's Kathy and George Lutz and then their 3 children, buy and move into this house, and they're only there for about a month before they absolutely vacated the property and decided that they couldn't live there anymore. 2 representatives from the Vatican came, a slew of priests, and everyone was kind of had the same advice to them, like, get out while you can. This is, like, not a place that's suitable for human living anymore, right? So it's really a chilling story. There's a lot of debate as to whether or not it was a hoax, or at least partially a hoax, or like I'm totally blanking on the term, like group psychosis, almost similar
Oh
to
yeah, like
the Salem witch
group
trials.
hallucination or whatever,
Hmm.
or
Yeah,
mass
so like
hysteria, whatever.
exactly a little like a tiny like small sample of like mass hysteria where everyone like believes that they're seeing something, or if this was just a hoax by the Lutzes to get themselves out of a financial hole. It's kind of
Just like The
it
Watcher.
exactly. I didn't want to keep bringing it up, but there is a lot of similarities between this case and The Watcher. So if you
Yeah.
haven't listened to that episode, definitely go listen to that, because there's a lot of good parallels.
Yeah, and that's a
But
two-parter because it was about Westfield, but it was about The Watcher and John List. So it's interesting how many parallels there are to this. Now that we're like saying them out loud, I'm like,
yeah,
wait a minute, these are so similar.
and it's like a family with 3 young kids moves into this house, right? And
Yeah,
in John
yeah,
List,
that's
it wasn't necessarily the same house, but it was like the same area. So
right. Right.
yeah, I mean, just this case, I can't hype this up enough. Our part 2 will be out in less than a week, so you don't have to wait long. But it's gonna get crazy, I think.
And
I'm really
honestly,
excited to tell you.
yeah, it's definitely, it is like the perfect way to celebrate our 1 year anniversary because I think that it's so interesting and it's something that everyone's heard of, but not a lot of people know the details behind, including us.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I really knew much about the haunts, and I don't really know. You were saying you didn't know a ton about the history, so it's definitely it's the perfect way to wrap up our first year and
It
start our second
definitely
year.
is. And speaking of wrapping things up, I know it's been a little while since we've talked about our Patreon, but we just want to let everyone know that there is going to be a new Patreon series coming out, and we're really excited about it because it's going to culminate in this really cool event and a lot of Patreon exclusive content. So if you're not a Patreon yet, now is the time to join. And I'll just say
I'm
that, and
so excited.
me too. I can't wait to start this new series. But Patreons, just let it be known that we will be back up and active and starting our second series very soon. And we think you guys are gonna love it. So, and we're really excited for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be
wait
so
until we have
fun.
a little bit more. I know, I can't wait either. We'll wait until we have a little bit more details about our exact plan of action to release exactly what it is, but know that Patreon episodes are coming soon.
Exactly. Yes. So yeah, that's the first part of the DeFeo murders / the Amityville Horror. We hope you enjoyed it.
And we hope you stay spooky.
Stay spooky. Keep it real, etc.
Creep it real, babies. All right, we'll talk to you very soon.
Bye.
Bye.
That was so sad.